What if I told you that the Broncos and the Storm share one of the most ruthless rivalries in NRL history, a rivalry built on heartbreak, controversy, and last-minute chaos that leaves fans gasping for breath every single time? And what if I told you that tonight's clash could either cement Brisbane as the true powerhouse of 2025 or prove once again that Melbourne's dynasty refuses to die? Stick with me, because what unfolded in this live showdown wasn't just a game. It was a statement, a battle, and a storm of drama that nobody saw coming. Before we dive in, make sure you smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a breakdown like this. Here at AUSSIE NRL Updates, we don't just cover the game, we live and breathe every tackle, every twist, and every moment that makes rugby league the most unpredictable theatre in sport. The build-up to this Broncos vs Storm live clash was unlike anything we've seen in recent seasons. Both teams came in with firepower to burn, both carrying storylines dripping with intensity. The Broncos, hungry, desperate to shake off the ghosts of finals heartbreak, and armed with a roster that looks more dangerous by the week. Across from them stood the Melbourne Storm, disciplined, clinical, and carrying the scars of their own disappointments, determined to prove they are still the benchmark. The air at Suncorp was thick with tension. Fans knew what was on the line: pride, dominance, and maybe even a preview of finals destiny. From the first whistle, this wasn't just rugby league, it was psychological warfare. The Broncos exploded out of the gates like a team possessed. Reece Walsh, dazzling as ever, lit up the field with blistering speed and that trademark confidence that makes defenders second-guess themselves. It was as if he had a point to prove, not just to Melbourne, but to the critics who questioned whether he could consistently deliver in the biggest moments. Within minutes, Walsh sparked a breathtaking movement. Ezra Mam drifted across the line, Adam Reynolds slid a perfectly weighted kick behind the Storm's defence, and the crowd roared as Kotoni Staggs pounced to slam the ball down. The Broncos led early. The stadium shook. But here's the thing about the Storm: they don't panic. They never panic. While Broncos fans were still celebrating, Melbourne struck back. Cameron Munster, the man who always seems to thrive in chaos, took control. With a step, a dummy, and a burst of sheer determination, he cut through Brisbane's defence. Moments later, Nick Meaney finished a slick play in the corner. Just like that, scores were level. The live atmosphere changed instantly. Broncos fans who had been screaming minutes earlier suddenly looked nervy. Storm supporters, small in number but loud in presence, smirked as if to say, "We've seen this story before." And that's the danger of playing Melbourne. No matter how hot you start, no matter how dominant you look, they always find a way back. The middle of the field turned into a battlefield. Payne Haas and Patrick Carrigan tried to assert Brisbane's muscle, charging forward like wrecking balls. But Nelson Asofa-Solomona and Christian Welsh met them head-on, collisions echoing through the stadium like thunderclaps. Every tackle was brutal, every metre hard-earned. By the 25th minute, bodies were already bruised, tempers already boiling. Referees had to separate players after a scuffle involving Haas and Tui Kamikamika. This wasn't just rugby league, it was raw, primal, and deeply personal. Then came the play that nobody saw coming. Just as Melbourne looked set to wrestle control, a loose offload changed everything. Walsh scooped it up, bolted 60 metres downfield, and with the Storm scrambling, he launched a flick pass to Selwyn Cobbo, who finished under the posts. The crowd erupted, commentators screamed, and suddenly the Broncos were back in front. But here's the kicker: Walsh stayed down after the play. The stadium gasped. Was it cramp? A knock? Or something more sinister? Every Bronco supporter held their breath, knowing that without Walsh, their attack would lose its spark. Craig Bellamy, Melbourne's master tactician, seized the moment. He urged his troops to target Walsh's edge, testing whether the Broncos' fullback could still hold his ground. They launched high bombs, charged at him on kick returns, and tried to rattle his confidence. And for a few minutes, it worked. Walsh fumbled one under pressure. Melbourne forced repeat sets. The Broncos' early momentum started to wobble. That's the genius of the Storm. They don't just play footy, they play chess. Every move has a purpose, every weakness is probed until it breaks. As half-time approached, the scoreboard read 14-12 in favour of Brisbane. It was a knife's edge. The Broncos had shown brilliance, but Melbourne's resilience kept them right in the fight. Then came one final twist before the break. With seconds left on the clock, Munster fired a looping cut-out pass. Xavier Coates soared above Cobbo, plucked the ball from the sky, and landed in the corner. Try time. The whistle blew. Storm fans went wild. Broncos fans were stunned. Instead of leading into half-time, Brisbane found themselves trailing by 2. And that's where the live clash took its first shocking turn. The Broncos, after dominating early, were suddenly staring at a deficit. Walsh looked banged up. Momentum had shifted. And Melbourne, calm, clinical Melbourne, looked like they were just getting started. So the question was simple: could the Broncos hold their nerve, or were we about to witness yet another Storm masterclass? Stay locked in, because in Part 2, the game explodes into controversy, late drama, and a finish that will go down as one of the most unforgettable moments of the season. The Storm had just landed that gut punch of a try on the half-time siren, stealing the lead right when Brisbane thought they had control. The Broncos walked into the sheds rattled, their fullback Reece Walsh looking shaky, and the crowd buzzing with nervous energy. But here's the thing about live sport: our momentum is fragile, and what happened in the second half was nothing short of jaw-dropping. Inside the dressing rooms, two very different moods took shape. For the Broncos, Kevin Walters tried to fire his men up. "Stay patient, back yourselves," he urged. He knew they had the weapons to strike but couldn't afford to get drawn into Melbourne's trap of frustration and mistakes. On the other side, Craig Bellamy's message was blunt. Keep suffocating them. They'll crack. Melbourne's game plan was simple: target Walsh, dominate the ruck, and force Brisbane into errors. When both teams emerged, you could feel the intensity. The first 10 minutes of the second half weren't just important. They were season-defining. Melbourne came out swinging. Harry Grant, ever the puppet master, began carving up Brisbane's middle. Quick darts from dummy half put Haas and Carrigan under enormous pressure, and suddenly the Broncos were scrambling in defence. Then it happened. From close range, Nelson Asofa Solomona bulldozed through 3 defenders and slammed the ball down. The Storm extended their lead. The away supporters roared. For the first time all night, it felt like Melbourne might be about to break Brisbane's spirit. The scoreboard read 20-12. Suncorp fell into stunned silence. But champions don't fold, and the Broncos refused to roll over. Walsh, despite limping earlier, suddenly sparked to life. From deep in his own half, he fielded a kick, sliced through Melbourne's kick chase, and linked with Ezra Mam, who tore away before finding Selwyn Cobbo on the wing. Cobbo thundered downfield, brushed off Coates, and scored in the corner. Try time. The crowd erupted like a volcano. Walsh pumped his fist, the Broncos came charging back, and belief flooded back into Suncorp. Conversion successful. 20-18. Game on. And then, controversy struck. In the 58th minute, Brisbane looked to have retaken the lead. Adam Reynolds delivered a pinpoint grubber, Staggs dived onto it, and the stadium exploded in celebration. But wait, referee blows his whistle. We're going upstairs. The video ref rolled the tape. Angle 1 looked like a clean grounding. Angle 2, maybe a slight knock-on. The crowd booed, chanting in fury. After minutes of deliberation, the decision came through: no try. Knock-on. The Broncos faithful were furious. Walters was seen shaking his head in disbelief. And just like that, the Storm had a lifeline. Moments later, Munster drilled a 40/20. Melbourne pounced on the momentum, and Harry Grant darted over from dummy half. Try confirmed. Storm lead back out to 8. The boos rained down from the stands. Was it robbery? Or just ruthless Storm execution? Fans were divided, and the live tension was off the charts. Here's where the Broncos showed their true heart. Lesser teams would have folded, but Brisbane went back to basics. Carrigan and Haas lifted in the middle, smashing Melbourne's forwards with bone-crunching tackles. Reynolds steadied the ship with smart kicks, turning Melbourne around. Then came a magical moment. Walsh, under immense pressure, sliced through on the left edge, stepped inside Meaney, and threw a miracle flick pass to Ezra Mam, who darted across for a try. The stadium shook once again. Conversion good. 26-24. The Broncos were alive.